Travis was nervous. Again, it was basically his natural state of being, but he was also feeling a little bit curious. Not quite excited, but definitely itching to have his next conflict with a stranger. He just wanted to see what would happen. His strategy was thus. He was going to let the other person decide how he was going to handle it. These strangers wanted to have power over him so bad? Fine. Take it. Do something constructive with it. I dare you. And for all he knew, they might have asked him to do something ridiculous. They might have told him they wanted him to jump off a bridge or gouge his own eyes out. But Travis thought that it was a lot more likely that when he asked them point blank what they wanted him to do, they'd just be shocked. He imagined them having an internal panic attack, awestruck by his diplomatic ways, realizing that they weren't ready to have the power over him that they clearly wanted so badly. Travis was already feeling tentatively confident. He didn't trust his confidence, so he was still nervous, but he was still feeling confident all the same. He could already see the stupefied looks on their faces. He almost couldn't wait. It was unseasonably pleasant for mid-November. Not too hot, not too cold, not too sunny, not too cloudy, not too windy, not too stagnant. The world just seemed comfy. And Travis wanted to go outside and enjoy it. But he had no specific activities to do outside, and nobody to do them with anyway. But he wasn't going to let that get him down. He was just going to go outside and walk around. And he didn't care if everybody else was like those assholes back at the construction site who told him in no unclear terms that they thought walking was solely the province of the shamefully impoverished and the intellectually disabled. He was going to enjoy a day in his life and not care what anybody thought. Hey, is this what having confidence feels like? Man, a guy can get used to this. If only he could find this confidence stuff more often. He had his route all planned out in a nice little loop. West, south, east, north. And his journey began quite nicely. As he walked west, the sun warmed his face. As he walked south, the birds sang in the trees. As he walked east, the twilight sky was a majestic canvas of colors. And for a moment, Travis thought the world was a beautiful place, and he was no longer afraid to live, nor to die. Then he got to Barnstable Road, and just as he was getting ready to hang a left, he saw someone crossing the street perpendicular to him. And judging by the guy's pace and his line of vision, it was clear that he was planning on continuing straight ahead, and he and Travis were about to occupy the same space. Travis tried to speed up so he could at least get in front of the guy, but the other guy sped up too, and when they converged, the stranger passed just a few feet in front of him. And something strange happened. Travis froze. He didn't want to turn left. He didn't want the guy thinking he had turned left just to follow him. The guy wouldn't have had any way of proving that's what Travis had been doing, but God knows the assumptions that people make without evidence often have real-world consequences. But Travis didn't want to cross the street either. He didn't want to back down and tacitly admit guilt when he had not even done anything, besides fall victim to bad timing. So what was he going to do? Walk down Barnstable, or walk down to the next street? You know what made up his mind? Realizing that a car across the street was waiting to turn right because they thought Travis was going to cross. Hey, that was an easy enough strategy. Cross the street and then walk over there. And so he did. He still felt a little bit pusillanimous about letting the other guy have the sidewalk all to himself, but at least Travis had his heart in the right place. He didn't want to make a stranger wonder if something was up. 2 blocks later, a woman turned the corner and started walking in the same direction as Travis, about 30 feet ahead of him. Well, okay, whatever, at least this time they had some breathing room between them. This wasn't the first time that he found himself in this situation. Besides, she had probably seen that he was already walking in this direction before she even appeared. But then she glanced backward. And then a block later, she did it again. Now Travis was worried that she was worried. And then he was worried that this worry was irrational or unfounded. Or worse, that it wasn't. As annoying as it was, Travis's mind wandered through all the political and socio-cultural stuff he'd seen on social media, and he realized this situation could be used as the subject of a heated argument. He knew of men and women alike who would say that in this situation, Travis was morally obligated to walk some other way, even if he wasn't doing anything malicious, because he should just assume that this woman had justifiable reasons to distrust a strange man walking behind her for an extended distance. Travis also knew of men and women alike who would say, fuck that. He shouldn't guiltily walk away when he hasn't done anything and isn't going to, and it wouldn't even have been that polite of a move because it would be implicating oneself, and furthermore, it would be condescendingly assuming that this person can't emotionally handle sharing a sidewalk with a stranger, and if she really couldn't, then that's her problem. Then again, Travis also knew of men and women alike who would say that he was weird and stupid for going on a 2-hour walk in the first place, therefore none of this would have happened if he had just done normal things for fun. Not to mention, Travis had been in spots like this before where guys had given him sideways looks too, so for all he knew, this wasn't a gender thing. Maybe it was just a general person-to-person distrust thing, which would have been less bad on a personal level, but might arguably have been more cynical on a grander scale. But in any case, Travis couldn't help but think, no matter what he did, there would be people who thought he was a stupid asshole for doing it. Why was the world so goddamn mean? Why couldn't people just like each other? Why couldn't people just stop assuming everybody else has the worst intentions? Oh, they would probably think Travis was childish for thinking such peacenik thoughts. Then Travis felt compelled to glance behind himself to see if anybody was walking behind him. Nope, nobody. He looked back ahead and, yep, there was that look again. And what Travis found himself really wanting to do was to employ his new strategy. He wanted to know what this woman wanted him to do. But for a gazillion reasons, that would be a social faux pas, so he didn't. You know what? Screw it. Travis is going to cut a block over to get away from this woman for his own safety. With those looks, any interaction between the two of them surely would have ended badly for the both of them. It was just a general person-to-person distrust thing. Now in a residential neighborhood, Travis turned left on Safe Haven Drive to head back north. As he turned, he was grateful it was more or less a straight line back to his house. He couldn't imagine what he would have done if he had to turn and somebody turned in the same direction right in front of him. And now there was an old lady walking ahead of him. And of course she had her purse with her. And of course it was November, so Travis was wearing a hoodie and looked like he was in the mood for purse snatching. And oh my god, she was walking so slowly, Travis couldn't help but catch up with her in less than a minute. Like Jesus, what would happen if she had to escape a burning building? Would she just not and make her peace with God? And then she gave Travis the glance. Again, he wanted to ask what she wanted him to do, but that wasn't going to happen. So Travis crossed to the other side of the street. He turned right across Safe Haven and left across Bullman, and what do you know, there was a family right ahead of him. A mom and a dad and a little boy on a little plastic riding toy. Now, Travis's body image issues weren't nearly as bad as they used to be, but he still had a deep-seated fear that passing strangers thought he looked like somebody who wanted to hurt children. And as the kid toddled along at a snail's pace and the parents walked even slower than the old lady, he couldn't help but gain ground on them. And when they heard his footsteps approaching, they gave him the glance too. And he wanted to ask, but he also didn't want to ask. And since Barnstable Road wasn't safe, he hung a right at the next corner and walked 3 more blocks until he was completely at the opposite edge of the subdivision. As he turned left on the main thoroughfare, he reflected on how he was now far out of the way from his house. Was it the right move to divert his course, and he had to accept that he had gotten unlucky with the placement of people? Or had he only inconvenienced himself when he had cowardly withered like a pussy willow? If it was any consolation, he told himself that if he asked those people what they wanted him to do, they probably all would have told him to get lost. The nice weather must have been bringing everybody outside, because a few blocks later, another guy crossed the street Travis was walking along, hung a right, and started preceding him. Travis, however, was done taking detours. He'd been walking for almost 2 hours. He was starting to get kinda tired, the sun was going down, the temperature was dropping, and he was starting to think he'd have to go to the bathroom soon. So he was just going to have to stick to his guns and hope that this guy didn't have any guns. First, Travis thought if he walked fast enough, he could pass the guy. But the guy was walking almost as fast as Travis, so he had to walk ridiculously fast just to gain a few feet on him. Then he tried walking extremely slowly to give the guy more space, but then he started worrying about time and goddammit, he really needed to pee. So he just kept a steady pace and hoped the guy wouldn't notice him. But he did. Several times, actually. But Travis told himself not to care. He was going to try to be brave. It was his sidewalk too, and he had a right to walk in whatever direction he wanted as long as he wasn't bothering anyone. And besides, he'd been assaulted and belittled enough times in his life specifically for not being intimidating enough, so he'd be damned if somebody thought he was intimidating now. Finally, they approached Bridgeport Street, the street Travis lived on. He needed to turn left there and only there because at that point, there was no other logical way to his house. Travis thought the guy would keep walking straight because, statistically, that was the most likely scenario. But then he did it. The motherfucker turned left. Travis's heart sank. But he had to keep going. He had to make it home. He turned the corner. He looked past the man. He wouldn't allow himself to look at him. But in his periphery, he could see the guy giving him the glance. Whatever, he was almost home. This would all be over soon. Why are you following me? And Travis stopped in his tracks. What? You following me? I see you. No, I'm not. I'm not. I'm just walking in the same direction as you. Oh yeah? So you follow me for a fucking mile and then when I turn to lose you, you turn too? You really think I believe that? It's called a coincidence. Why don't you believe that? It's no coincidence. I see you watching me.
What, was this guy following you too?
Holy shit, it was the lady from Barnstable Road. What, you were following this lady too?
Well, I guess it's nice to know that he isn't just stalking women.
I'm not stalking anyone. I live this way.
If you live this way, then why did you walk in a different direction?
Specifically because I was afraid you thought I was following you.
Well, then why would that thought cross your mind if that's not what you were actually doing?
But because I'm paranoid. I have anxiety.
You're paranoid because you know what you're doing is wrong and everyone can see you doing it?
Hey, if you keep following people, you're going to get your ass kicked. I'm not following anyone. I live on this street. No, you don't.
Your story doesn't add up.
And then he remembered. What do you want me to do?
We want you to quit following people.
No, I want to see your ID.
What?
Show us your ID. Prove you live here. But I'm not showing you where I live. You already say you live on this street. What difference does it make?
Show us your ID or we're calling the police.
I haven't done anything.
There's two of us and one of you. Who do you think they'll believe?
Hi, back off. He lives here. He just looks like a creep. Hey, what was that for? Because fuck you. Why can't you two just be good people? Travis didn't even realize he said that till he said that. Who the fuck are you to tell me I'm not a good person, weirdo?
Look at yourself. You give off a creepy vibe to everybody you meet. I don't care if you really weren't following anyone. You clearly don't have the confidence to actually do anything good with your life. Isn't that right, Mr. I'm paranoid, I have anxiety? Don't lecture me on being a good person.
Now I'm going to keep walking this way, and she's going to keep walking that way, and you're going to stay right here till neither one of us can see you anymore. And he did. And she did. And so Travis did. You give off a creepy vibe to everyone you meet. You clearly don't have the confidence to actually do anything good in your life. And Travis knew a lot of people would tell him not to listen to the judgment of a stranger who didn't know anything about him. But what if she knew plenty from her brief encounter with him? What if he really did give off an aura that told her everything she needed to know? After all, he didn't know her either. What if she wasn't wrong? What if she was right? About everything. What if there really was some inherent flaw in him that he needed to fix? Or one that he couldn't fix? And as he always did, he thought of the person he wished he could be. That person would definitely have the confidence to do good in his life. But then he thought, in a world where so many people exist like the angry lady and the angry Eastern European guy, what would be the point of trying to do good if so many people had a very different idea of good? What if most people's moral compasses aligned more with theirs than his? What if most people thought that a hallmark of being a good person would be to tell off somebody they suspected of being evil on nothing more than a gut feeling? What if most people thought that Travis was being a moral coward for trying to be civil? Should he change his idea of good to fit in more with how the seeming majority thought? No. The person he wished he could be wouldn't do that. Such a person wouldn't compromise their morals just for others' approval. Right? Then again, these people were clearly trying to tell him that as the moral majority, they demanded his morals and values aligned with theirs. And Travis didn't know the vast majority of people. What if their idea of good was right, and his was wrong? Would the person he wished he could be judicious enough to consider such a possibility? And Travis had a thought that was both scary and yet oddly reassuring. He thought that the kind of person who he truly admired would be someone who doesn't have to improve themselves from such a lowly life. The kind of person who he would truly be in awe of was someone who was, for lack of a better term, born to be great. Any idiot could overcome their flaws. But in Travis's eyes, a truly heroic person wouldn't have had to. To borrow a phrase from the cashier at Tar March, a truly legendary person wouldn't have had to. The bad news is that Travis is going to have to accept that all these conflicts he was having with strangers were proof that he was never going to be this kind of person. The good news, though, is that since the world seemed to disagree with him on his definition of admirability, maybe he could trick them into thinking that this was only the beginning of his hero's journey. But how the fuck was he going to do that?